Paul A.Otchere, a host of a good evening program, can say Forson TV, not as what to Papa, their money, and Doma Hene, and at the MPP, NDC, MPs, Dudona, Adena, or see that you question a court case, I didn't know Jack or Mapine, and my court Nakasanka saying the Anthony Bo NDCs. So if said that she question for the year, money bedi. Se odi bem so dia obenya ne tisu edidi mtade na teso mo edom interrupt we court case mo sense me ba de sa kwa na mo hye judges ne say the court na bufu power mo betuma fa kwan foforo so ade etuma jeli ba pe nti no mo ntia na tese court na kasankasa ye ne dia watutu ja kasankasa dia mane to ma hene ene tese NDC MPs to do na was a bunch of hypocrites. You won't go to parliament, so what? Paul A.Otchere replies Domahini and NDC MPs and so on about within Paul A.Otchere
good guy, nothing to do with his personality. But he's a high court judge. Those who don't know, Domahini is a high court judge. He presided over one of the cases of our friend Mikael, the guy who did the Fix the Country, what's his name? Oliver Baka Boma, the guy was plenty. He's my friend, but he has plenty names. Oliver. But Domahini was a high court judge in that matter. One of those cases. Domahini is a high court judge. And look at what he's saying. He's criticizing a Supreme Court decision publicly as a high court judge. That is wrong. It will never happen in Westminster. A high court judge in England cannot, should not, will never ever publicly criticize the decision of the House of Lords. That if he were on the Supreme Court, he would have ruled the other way. Which other way? This is bad. It cannot happen. It shouldn't take place. What is the meaning of this? Is it
doctors, nurses, and engineers who...
Is it political? Is it sentimental? We are destroying what we have built. A high court judge sits as a high court judge and delivers his rulings. He is also a chief. He can address his people, but he cannot criticize the Supreme Court publicly. I can criticize the Supreme Court. I'm not a judge. I'm a commentator. Who can criticize the Supreme Court? He's a commentator. He can do it after the case. Once the case is out, anybody can criticize. But a high court judge cannot publicly say that, oh, the Supreme Court ruled. If I want the Supreme Court, I'll rule differently. That's very dangerous, and we should not accept it. And what is he saying? That somebody was in Canada, and what is he saying? He said, oh yeah, baby, I had to watch him. Oh, I don't understand what he's saying. Somebody was in Canada. He knows the rules of running for parliament in Ghana. He filled a form that asked him a question. He answered the question wrongly. He answered the question untruthfully. That's the matter. Why are we sugarcoating it? Why are we decorating it? The guy took a form. He was asked, are you Paul A.Otchere? He said, no. But it turns out he's Paul A.Otchere. What else should we do about this? Why are we using politics to sugarcoat things? All of you members of parliament, 275 members of parliament, did you not fill that same form? Why is it that all of you are not being prosecuted by Godfrey Dame? You should ask yourself that question, members of parliament. Why is it that all of you are not being prosecuted? Did you not all answer that question on the Electoral Commission's form? Fifi Kwete answered it before. Has he ever been prosecuted? J. Mensah Bonsu has answered that question. Has he been prosecuted? Adamu Sakande answered that question. Was he prosecuted? Yes, he was. Jachi Kwesi answered that question. Is he being prosecuted? Yes, he is being prosecuted. Why must the prosecution stop? Because he won a by-election. So the goat stealer, he didn't win any by-election. He stole a goat. He's in for 5 years. Forson is not speaking for the goat stealer. Forson is not speaking for the ordinary people who are in the courts every day being prosecuted. Recently, when people are celebrating their birthdays, they go to the court to free those on remand, to free those who are owing 2 cedis, 100 cedis, 5 cedis, and they are in for 8 years. We see that in the social media all the time. The minority leader has said nothing about it. But the minority leader says, don't prosecute Jachi Kwesi, who has answered the question wrong and put himself in the line of the prosecution so clearly. What are we talking about in Ghana? What is the meaning of this? Let's go to what Sam Okudzeto thinks about the matter. And this is how he starts. Uncle Sam says, it is wrong. It is repugnant. It is senseless Tell me you don't agree with Uncle Sam. Tell me you don't agree with Sam Okudzeto. He says it is wrong. It is repugnant. It is senseless for a sitting high court judge to stand on a public platform and make an utterance of this nature. This is my view. If I were to be sitting in that disciplinary committee on the Judicial Council, I would have asked him to resign or asked that he be sacked as a judge. This is what I would have done. But what is the meaning of this? Why do we think that we have some rules to tie politicians and we have to let them behave the way we want them to behave? The president must fall in line. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? Please, those of you who know the Domahini, tell him that he must retract that statement. He must, and we're going to remind him, he must retract his criticism of the Supreme Court. I should say it again. He must retract his public criticism of the Supreme Court. He can keep his advice to the Attorney General. He can raise the advice to the Attorney General privately. He's a High Court judge. He works with the Attorney General in the same industry. He can write to the Attorney General. The learned Attorney General, this is my view of the matter. I think he may not be the only one to have advised the Attorney General to enter a nullity process. But that's okay. You can give him that advice. But you can't say what the Supreme Court did was wrong. What? How can a High Court judge even think of saying that? In any case, what did the Supreme Court do that was wrong? The Supreme Court was merely affirming a decision of the High Court. The same High Court that he sits. His colleague judge is the one who gave the original ruling. But it is a mathematical ruling. It cannot be wrong. On so and so date, you told the document that you are a citizen of Ghana only. The evidence is that it is untrue. Canada knows it. Ghana knows it. That on that date when you filled the form, the process had not been completed. Why didn't you tell the Electoral Commission that my process had not been completed? If he had told the Electoral Commission that, which would have been the truth, his form would have been denied. Because to file for the election, you need to be Ghanaian only. 137 members of the parliament on the NDC side, they all filled that form. Why are they not all being prosecuted? They should ask themselves that question. 137 members of parliament, including the famous Forson, our good minority leader. He's a good man, Forson. He's a good man. No doubt about that. He's a good man. He's a clever man. I believe so. But Forson must look at this. He and the 136 people, they all filled that form. Why hasn't Godfrey Dame taken out a prosecution against them in the court? Why is Dame prosecuting 亚-Chi-Kwesi's only? That must tell them something. Because 亚-Chi-Kwesi's outcome in the truthfulness of his disclosure had a deficit. That's why he's being prosecuted. There was untruth in his disclosure. We want our children to be learning that you can fill a form and disclose untruth, and then you can show both around the place. You are in parliament, you are show both here, we won't allow it. That's mob rule. That's banditry. That's not democracy. It's banditry. We don't want that. It's mob rule. We don't want that. We don't want life to be nasty, booties, and short. We don't want that. Life ought not to be nasty, booties, and short in a democracy. You fill a form wrong, you have to deal with it. What is this blackmail, threatening all over the place? Stop the prosecution of Collins Dowda. Stop the prosecution of 亚-Chi-Kwesi. Stop the prosecution of Forson. Otherwise, we won't come to parliament again. Dana Bodakwi was prosecuted. He was a sitting member of parliament. Richard Kwame Pepra was prosecuted. He was a minister of finance. Victor Salome was prosecuted. He was a minister of finance. Anthony Akotose was lined up for prosecution. He was a former minister of finance. May he rest in peace. Charles Reku Brobe. He was a chief executive of VRA and the chief executive of Ghana 50. They were lined up for prosecution. What is this? Why are we doing this? The goat stealer must go to jail. Forson doesn't care about the goat stealer. Forson cares about 亚-Chi-Kwesi. Why? 亚-Chi-Kwesi is a big man. And now we hear the chiefs of Asen North say that, hey, you can't prosecute our guy. You should leave him alone. When they were prosecuting some people, did any chief come and say you can't prosecute anybody? All the chiefs respect the law.
I know and it's my Paul, I don't watch you, so they are to graph fire on my any comment on so be it is a shilling before Papa NDCs are to force no say my own call parliament on him, my own court parliament just because of say a afraid that you question no court, there is no way I'm going to meet on someone on him is no one be Chiban parliament John Mutu or say Paul I don't watch you say already and said I'm fan most I obey your own parliament today and only so much as Paul I don't watch you so that to do and so say media premium. But my comment section also or Chawa be the member of Smith Making Kaya Maha Akroma TV swim the Casego Yabio Midi Edio Bingi Bosechi Macram.